When was the last time you found yourself in an uncomfortable situation and you tried desperately to keep your facial expression neutral? It may have been in a meeting in which a controversial topic came to the table and it felt as if you might be the only one that saw anything questionable about that. It could have been at a family dinner when one family member made a comment or asked a question that put you on the spot. Or it could have been with colleagues and you were discussing a specific strategic move and you felt completely out of your league, ill-prepared. You felt as if you didn't even know what was on, and you were trying to find the appropriate response. Catch the feeling? So the emotion that you were trying to conceal in the meeting was anger. Family dinner, it was discomfort. With your peers, it might have been anxiety or self-doubt. All of these emotions have faces attached to them, a default look, so to speak. Every face tells a story. So what story does your face tell? There are appropriate facial expressions for specific circumstances. Smiling while relaying a story that has horrific events in it is somehow suspect. Anger in response to an expression of gratitude, that just doesn't seem right. When something is genuinely funny, we automatically laugh, at least we break into a smile. So these are expressions that come naturally. When our face depicts something that is not in keeping with what is happening, then we might want to ask deeper questions. So let's bring this to our text this morning. Leprosy was a dreaded disease in the time that Jesus walked the earth. Now, subsequent research has shown that possibly what these 10 were experiencing wasn't what we classify as leprosy today, but that's beyond the scope of what we'll talk about this morning. It's enough to say that these 10 had contracted a dreaded, hopeless, deadly, stigmatized condition in the time that Jesus was on earth. So these 10 people who lived together as outcasts due to their highly contagious disease dared to call out to Jesus when they were in desperation. They had been shunned by family, driven out by the religious community, and basically were just existing until they would eventually die. Given this dire situation, what do you think these 10 people were feeling that day? Without getting all feely on you, but what do you think? What do you think their faces would have expressed? Did their facial expression change from when they were just doing what they were doing and when they caught sight of Jesus? What might that change have been? Maybe they had grim resignation and terror on their face, and suddenly there was some hopefulness, enough that they cried out. When Jesus actually addressed them, what then? Was there even a change then in their feeling and in their face? He gave them such a curious assignment, didn't he? They may have initially been confused or shocked. I know I would have been. He didn't pray for them audibly. He didn't even come over to touch them. He just gave them the direction, go and show yourself to the priests. And then it says, and as they were going, they were healed. What was their conversation? What were their facial expressions when they realized, one after the other, wait a minute, something just happened? Did they dance? Did they shout? Did they scream? Did they actually get all the way to the priests? We're not told. Actually, we know only about one of them after that. One of them, realizing that they no longer were ill, began praising God in a loud voice. Imagine that sound. Imagine the sight. Did their faces also turn from desperation to excitement or extreme excitement? Relief? We'll never know because they're never mentioned again in the story. They never come back. I think we tend to consider facial expressions somewhat superficial, having no connection really to anything substantive. But really? That isn't the case at all, in my opinion. It is said that the eyes are the window into the soul. So wouldn't the face also reflect a deeper reality? What do your eyes reveal about your soul? Does your face tell a story about what you're experiencing? Maybe it tells a story that you are unwilling to share in words. Expressions, what we say with our eyes, speak volumes to those around us. If you know someone well, you will know by their facial expression what their mood is, whether they're unencumbered or burdened, whether they're impatient or aggravated or delighted or angry. What if we were to look at prayer through the same lens as faces? What if our prayers tell the story of our spiritual well-being? Each experience we have invites a prayer, just as each experience we have invites an emotional and a facial expression. What prayer did this encounter with Jesus invite? One way to read this story of the 10 suffering people is through this alternate lens, this lens of prayer. When we first meet them, their prayer is, what do you think it was? Anybody? Help! Exactly. Help! We're in desperation. Okay, there was no thought of decorum. They weren't trying to, come at this diplomatically. It was just out there. Help! This was an existential prayer accompanied by an equally desperate, I imagine, facial expression. 9 of the 10 people did not return. As far as we're aware, they didn't express any subsequent prayer. Their attitude seems to be, in their absence, indifference, egocentrism, ungratefulness. They had just received the greatest gift, the gift of life, and yet they accepted it without any comment. The one who did return was entirely different. There was loud gratitude, probably as loud as the help had been. This person's prayer included falling on their knees in humility, in an expression of what this great gift meant to them. Remember, people regularly died from this disease since there was no known cure. In this one who returned, there was no flippancy, no egocentrism or entitlement at all. Quite the opposite. We don't know what this person said. The words aren't mentioned, but we know it was an expression of deep gratitude. So which prayer does this expression or this experience invite? In the 9 who took the gift and ran with it, we don't know. They responded, we don't even know if they responded in prayer at all. But the one who came back, a prayer of gratitude, a prayer of humility, a prayer that reflected a deep understanding of a life saved and therefore transformation at its most basic level. What do these prayers or no prayers indicate about the spiritual well-being about these 10 people? Each experience invites a prayer. Now, before we become defensive or become totally desperate and in despair, wondering what our prayers or lack of prayers indicate about us, let me tell you about a very basic experience I had. It was about prayer prompts. Just over a year ago, privately owned business with all kinds of beautiful things in it. Plants and candles, and unique one-of-a-kind clothing pieces, pottery, art, all kinds of writing tools and paper products. You know what kind of shop that is? Yeah, okay. This one journal caught my eye. I've journaled for years and used everything from crude notebooks to leather-bound gifted journals. But I've never had one like this. It had a linen cover. It felt good in the hands. I opened it, and the layout just appealed to me. It was divided into short prompts, complete with a single line for a written response. A single line. I've never bought anything like this before. In fact, something like that has never appealed to me before, but this time I thought, why not? Let's just give this a try. It was for 6 months, and I assumed, okay, this is going to be a one-off, and then I'd move on back to my regular journaling only. Well, in this journal, you write twice a day. In the morning, the writer is invited to list 3 gratitudes, 3 hopes, and 1 affirmation. In the evening, the writer is invited to list 3 highlights of the day and something that was learned. Pretty simple, right? Straightforward, decidedly not profound, almost a little cliche. But the astonishing thing about these simple prompts and repeated responses is that it has changed me. Now, not dramatically, no lightning bolts, no quick changes, but I've noticed just a little bit at a time. I recognize that these prompts have become prayers. So a prayer of gratitude, prayers of hope, prayers of declaration, and then repeated at night, prayers of gratitude, prayers of reflection. I'm on my 3rd 6-month journal. So this simple exercise has become an anchor of sorts, a ritual, if you will, that steady routine that invites gratitude, even when I have to ponder to come up with things that are different than yesterday's to be grateful for. Isn't that a sad confession? We live in an environment just surrounding us with things that we can be grateful for. And here I have to ponder. Sometimes I have to ponder to come up with an affirmation that will help me grow and challenge me to grow. And then suddenly, I found that effortlessly, these resulted in a simple, oh, thank you, or, I need help with that. So that's a prayer. Twice a day, I'm given an invitation for reflection and prayer from a few simple prompts. It helps to change my expectations. It moves me to readjust my attitude, and it sometimes serves to lift my spirits when I really don't want it lifted. But it does it anyway. Thank you and help are complete prayers, just like no is said to be a complete sentence. Of course, there are other prayers. What prayer beckons you as you are out walking? When you're in nature, when you see and hear and notice things that are different from what you see and hear and think when you're sitting on your couch. Isn't that an invitation for awe? The prayer of awe. And that can be offered without any words. It's an attitude. It can be a melody played on a flute like Roger does. It can be a smile, an utterance of, well, do you see that? To no one in particular, followed by, thank you. When you slow down and notice, when you find pleasure in beauty, when you allow your spirit to be moved by something you had no hand in making come to pass, it can become a prayer. Another prayer we're invited into frequently is the prayer of anger. And that might catch you by surprise. But truly, anger is not unique to you nor to this time in history. If you've ever read the Psalms, you will be aware that anger truly is a prayer. You may not have thought of it as prayer, but something spoken to God is a prayer. But even something that is spoken out into the atmosphere is a type of prayer. What does it say about you, about your experience, about what you're perceiving about the world around you? If any of you have listened to Taylor Swift's most recent double album, The Tortured Poets Department, you will hear the prayer of anger woven into lyrics and melodies repeatedly. And if you listen closely, you will recognize that there are things to be enraged about. And she addresses this in her art form. There is ranting and rage in the Psalms. Those who wrote the Psalms said, in essence, I've been hurt, or we've been hurt, God. We want revenge. This is unfair. Do something. Where are you anyway? It's kind of this pound the fist, stomp the foot kind of prayer. Now, mind you, it's not scream at your partner, curse at your neighbor prayer. That's rage out of control. But when we consciously come to God with our frustration, with our sense of needing justice, with the feeling of being treated unfairly, inhumanely, we release that rage towards God because we feel that God has an open heart toward humanity. Someone we can turn to when we have no recourse. The prayer of awe and the prayer of anger are very different. They land differently in our nervous system. Our faces will reveal something very different. But they are both prayers that have come out of deep, everyday experiences. We don't have to conjure them up. Just become aware of the invitation. What facial expression do you have today, which may give you an idea of what's within? Which attitude are you living in this very moment? Which prayer might be calling out to you? Become mindful and observant of what is within you and what comes towards you as an invitation. If you pay attention, you can probably tell what your face is saying without looking in a mirror. You can listen to your body. You can count on your heart and your breath rate to let you know whether you are inviting a prayer of awe or a prayer of help, a prayer of gratitude, or a prayer of anger, or any other kind of prayer. As you ponder these invitations to prayer, you will discover more kinds of prayer. And I'd love to hear about that discovery. May these invitations bring you growth and bring you peace. Amen.